Hey team. So now we're gonna handle two things. First, we're going to handle displaying errors in our project form. And by the way, I have my React or my Node server running, and I also have my Java server running with a few projects in there in the database. So I suggest you do the same. So I have two things that I want to handle, and I'm going to show you what I mean. The first thing that I want to handle is what happens when we submit bad data. And in the create project form, it obviously works, but what happens when we do it here in the update form? Nothing happens. It just takes you back to the dashboard, right? And then we obviously want the same behavior if we're trying to submit bad data. And then the other one, which I think is how we're going to start, is just adding some additional logic so it handles URL requests better. Because if you come here, any user that's fairly capable with with web applications will start picking up on the fact that if you want to see your project, you don't necessarily have to click here, but you can perhaps do update project and then type your own route and then go there, right? And I can pretty much do that for all the projects that I have. But what happens if I just go to a project that doesn't exist? At the back end, we're gonna get an error, but here it's just gonna load an empty form, right? And this is not okay. So we know that we're getting errors from our server. I believe that we wired that up in the controller if the project is not found, or if the project ID doesn't exist. We do have at the controller, at the service layer, I think. And let me just go and take a look. Yes, and I'm just gonna bring it here real quick so you guys remember what I'm talking about. In the find project by ID identifier service, which we have on our controller, obviously, we do have it so that if the project is null, it's going to throw an exception, right? But obviously, we're not handling that better, or we're not handling that well here at the front end layer, right? I mean, it knows that there's a problem, but it still gives us the form. So the fix that I have for this one, it's going to be very simple. If you try and go to a project that doesn't exist, then all I want is for React to take the user back to the dashboard. That's it. And this is also going to be true once we start wiring up our security, and when we don't want a user to be able to see a project that belongs to another user, because this is just at the personal level right now. So each user is going to have their own sets of projects. We're not working with teams in this initial scope of this course. But anyway, we want that if you try and check out the project code of another user, also there's going to be obviously an error that we're going to wire up later on, much later on. And we just want the user to be brought back to the dashboard view. Okay, so this one's going to be a quick one, a quick fix. All we need to do is go to the project actions, and here where we're getting the project by ID, we're going to create a try catch block. We are going to move the happy path into the try. And then since we're taking the history parameter, all we need to do, this is very, very simple. All we need to do is history.push and just send people back to the dashboard. Yep. And with that in place, now we don't get an empty form, which to be honest, that's just bad behavior. Like, to be honest, that's not okay. So if we try, so we get a valid project, but if we try project 1 billion or whatever the hell this is, then it just sends us back to the dashboard. And again, let me just try one more time. I really like making sure that this is good, and basically saying, hey, that doesn't exist. Okay, so that's problem number one. Then number two is going to be obviously to just make sure that if we are in fact submitting back bad data, because if we go here to update project, it just takes us back to this, because we're not handling the errors. And that's the other thing, we're not even loading the errors coming from the state. So right now what this is saying is like, I don't know, you were successful, so I'm just gonna send you back to your dashboard, because right now, since we're not even getting the errors from the service, from the server, it's just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna shoot you back to the dashboard, and that's not what we need. We need to handle, for this to be handled. Okay, so we're gonna close out of this. We're gonna go back to our update project, and we're gonna start working at the very bottom of the component. And here, the next thing that we need to add to the map state to props object is the errors that we're getting from the state. And this is going to be state.errors, not arrows. Okay, and then we have to obviously handle it here at the props. Errors. It's going to be a prop type that's required. Oh, come on. There. And it's also an object. Cool. We save this. Then we need to come up here all the way to the constructor at the very, very top of our file. And then we need to add the errors object, which at the beginning, when it mounts, it should be blank. It should be it should be empty, right? We are not expected to have any errors here. And then, just like we did for our add project, we just need to come here to component. We'll receive props, and we have to do. I'm gonna do it here at the very, very beginning. Next props.errors. If we have errors there, then we're going to this.set state. Errors, which is that object there, and then we're gonna pass it whatever's in the props. Okay, so with this in place, we should at least see the errors in the state, and we should prevent the form from submitting, which it was actually submitting. Like, it actually assumed that it was taking the round trip, the successful round trip to the server. Now, actually, I'm going to open the Redux. I'm gonna open Redux because right now we don't have any errors. But if I try and delete this and then submit it blank, we should see that error there. And there you have it. Perfect. Project name is required. Good. So now all that's left for us to do is to use class names to then start setting up the messages in the component that you need. In the input field, in each of the input fields. So I'm just like I did before, I'm just going to do one, and then you guys it's your homework to go do the rest. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this in parentheses, then I'm going to wrap the whole thing in brackets. Then right here I'm going to type class names. Okay, so far you're with me, because remember, all we're saying is that this is the standard or static class that we're going to give to this element. Then we're going to put a comma here, and that's where we're going to put our conditional. And basically we're going to say add is invalid to this class, to the input field. Add is invalid if there are errors. Project name, like if errors contain one for project name, which is the value that we're working on right now. So with this in place, and again, I skipped a step here, a very important one. First, we need to make sure that here in the render method, we bring the errors from the state so that we can actually access them in the form. Okay, this dot state. Okay, perfect. So first, you need to get the errors here in the render method, so that then you can access them down here. Okay, and with this in place, now it should work, I promise. And the first thing that we're going to see is that we're going to see this input field surrounded in, or with a red border here. Okay, so submit that data. Oh, sorry. Yeah, because it refreshed when I saved it, right? So submit that data, and it's all red, and we have the error here. Good. So last thing that I'm going to do on this video, and then again, you have to do the rest on your own. This shouldn't be a problem for any of you at this moment in time. All right. Errors, a project name, and then we're going to do and, which is like the if on the class names. Remember this. This syntax is how you use class names, okay, which is the package that we're using for this. Can we do this with if and else's and whatever, if there are project name errors, whatever, and then add the is invalid? Yes, we totally could, but it's such a long trip to do that I'm really happy that I was able to find class names. Okay, so this is the syntax. So if errors project name, then what you're gonna do is we're gonna do a div with the class name invalid feedback, and remember this is emit, right? If you do div the element dot, and then whatever you put after the dot is actually the class name. Okay, and there you go. And then we're just gonna display the errors dot project name. Perfect. Now we should see the whole thing. Oh, again, this is not an error. What happened is that I had it like this, right? Then I did some changes, say whatever changes, and when I saved, it actually refreshed when it picked up errors. I'm sorry, when it picked up changes. I'm going to show you again. So if I do this and this, I'm sorry, and put it back and save it, then it gets to a point where if there are changes, it refreshes. And that's why when I did submit, it went back here. Okay, so you have to just go ahead and delete it again, and then we're gonna see our error. Okay, so your assignment for this one is to go ahead and do the rest on your own. And just a hint, remember this is disabled, so you literally only have to do one more. All right, so just go do that, play with it, make sure you understand it. I'm gonna do it offline, and I'm gonna commit it on branch 27 in case you do want to see the syntax for that one. But again, it's exactly the same, other that the only difference is that we're looking for the description, errors in the description if there are any. Thank you.